Alrighty, good morning. My name is Meghna Prashant, and I'll be your host for today's session. Before we get started, let me introduce myself. I am an engagement manager in the professional services team here at Wrike. I've been with Wrike since 2019, and before Wrike, I worked as a management consultant at one of the big fours. While I was there, I worked with a lot of IT clients, did a ton of software implementation and process optimization engagements. So my experience is grounded in that space. I bring that experience and passion into my current role. And what gets me excited for the day is that I get to work with clients such as yourselves and I get to ensure your success with Thrive. I am super thrilled to be here today where we will talk about streamlining service test requests in Thrive. In terms of agenda, on our session today, we will talk about the power of Wrike for service desk teams. So our demo is going to focus on three key aspects from intake to execution to reporting. So first off, we will talk about Wrike request forms and we will talk about how our request forms can streamline the whole intake process, eliminate wasted efforts and improve efficiency. Next up, we will talk about how we can improve visibility and alignment to the teams as they execute. During that segment, we have a ton of features that we are going to focus on. We'll talk about custom item types, custom fields, along with our powerful automation engine. Then lastly, we will look at our in-depth reporting, aka analyze reports. So these are reports that you can show to your leadership to demonstrate how you are delivering on your business outcomes. So please note that the session will run for about 30 minutes, and we have a ton of content today that we're going to cover. And depending on the amount of time it takes to review some of the topics, there is a chance that we may hold a part two of this session where we deep dive into some of the topics. And at any point, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A option. We will answer your questions as they come by, and we'll also set aside some time at the end to open it up to the floor. With that said, before I kick off my demo here, I really want to share this exciting customer success story that I've got. So Lead Express uses Wrike, and when we approached the CEO at Lead Express and asked them what led them to consider Wrike, here's what they said. I want my staff and customers to be happy. The easier my staff can work, the less concern there is. Isn't that a brilliant goal? And that's precisely what we are here to achieve together today. So we also got this fantastic testimonial from the team. All this is to say that Wrike empowers enterprise service teams like Lead Express to work cross-functionally and collaboratively within one single platform. If you do want to read more about how Wrike brings impact to Lead Express specifically, please do check them out on our case study page, and we will drop some links into the chat as well as we are going through this session. Now let's get right into it. It's demo time. Let's look at how Lead Express is getting some of those incredible results. Another note, so this demo that I've built is based on my experience of dealing with IT clients. I work with several IT clients on a daily basis. And through this demo, my goal is to give you a crash course into the way some of the best teams leverage Wrike. So you will get a recording of this session to watch back once the session is done. I do highly encourage you to work with your account manager and with your customer success manager to help as you need. And please know that during my demo, I'm going to be on this experience called the Lightspeed experience, which is our new UI. So if my Wrike account looks slightly different from yours, it's because you're still on the old experience. And if you haven't already done so, I highly encourage you to try our new Lightspeed experience because it is simply the latest and the greatest. All right, let me pull up my demo instance over here and we will get right into it. Awesome. So in order to demonstrate Wrike's ease of use, flexibility, scalability, and security as it pertains to our use case, we will walk through a story. In our example, we will be following the story of an IT team that is leading all efforts to capture service desk requests in Wrike. Here, we have a dedicated workspace for that IT team. In our menu on the left, you will see that the space has been tailored to meet the unique needs of this IT team. So we have a tickets folder for the IT team to capture incidents and requests. There's an asset management folder where the IT team can keep track of asset requests, a knowledge items folder to share lessons learned, as well as a satisfaction surveys folder where user can submit surveys and rate their experiences. So our process here kicks off with Sally. Sally, our user, she fires up her laptop on a Monday morning and runs into the blue screen of death. Sally's immediate reaction is to get in touch with someone on the IT team, but her IT team is super smart. They want to streamline the whole intake process and they're leveraging Wrike for it. So, in order to access the request form, Sally probably uses her mobile phone because she can no longer access her laptop. But for the purpose of our demo today, we are going to follow Sally's journey as though she were doing it on the web app. So if Sally is a Wrike user, and this is the same experience with the mobile app as well, right? So if Sally is a Wrike user, she can click on the green plus button, tab into requests, and look for the form that the IT team has put together and punch in her request. Alternatively, she can also use the publicly available link to the form that her IT team has published. And that link is something that can be used by non-Wrike users as well. So any external users who are not part of your Wrike account can also punch in requests using that link. So Sally provides a brief description over here. She says she's running into blue screen error. She enters today's date. And the reason we want her to enter today's date is because in the backend, we've hooked up today's date to the start date. This is something that you can do in the form settings in the backend. And then Sally proceeds to answer other questions, right? Here she is expected to select her request type. And her IT team has done an excellent job in making this a dynamic request form. And what that means to us is that depending on the response that Sally provides, IT can trigger a templated set of tasks, projects, or custom item types, and they can have these items routed into different locations. So, for example, if Sally is requesting some hardware, then IT is going to load a set of templates or work item types into the asset management folder. But in this case, Sally needs to report a problem, and the response that you get from here is going to be routed into this tickets folder. And then Sally proceeds to respond to other questions. She provides more details and then she tabs into the next page. And in the next page, she is asked to provide an urgency level. You'll notice that there's this little help text here to help Sally pick the most appropriate response. And again, this is something you can configure in the backend in the form settings. So Wrike does allow you to set up help text, and this is something that a lot of clients do. I do encourage you to explore this if you haven't already done so. So Sally says her request is critical. She reads this information and she knows her request is critical. And Sally also notices that some of these questions are marked with an asterisk while others are not. The ones marked with asterisks, she realizes are questions that she cannot skip. Those are mandatory questions. And the ones without the asterisks are optional. So Sally may provide a response or she may choose to skip it. So once she is done providing the response, she is going to go ahead and hit submit. As soon as Sally hits submit, Wrike automatically launches the right work template with the right custom item type and drops it into the ticketing queue. So Sally can access the request by clicking on the link, and the IT team can see all open requests by going into this tickets folder. So for those of you who are new to custom item types is one of our newer features. It is being heavily leveraged by a lot of our clients. So custom item types are fully configurable task and project item types. And these item types can be tailored to the specific needs of your organization. So if you're part of an IT team, maybe you can have, instead of generic tasks or projects, you can have things like incidents, or you can have things like requests. Or if you're part of an HR enterprise service team, you could have things like HR candidate cards, for example. So you will notice that this view is a little busy, and later during the session, we will go into how you can apply filters on this view and you can clear out some of this noise. But Sally's request is placed all the way at the bottom here. She's run into blue screen error. IT looks at it. And you'll also notice that for Sally's request, we've launched a template that is built on top of this custom item type called incident. And because Sally marked the criticality level as critical, we got this request that came in with the same due date as the start date. The start date that Sally provided was August 8th, and that was the same due date that it came by. And then you can also see that we triggered an alert. There are ways in which you can create automations in Wrike to trigger warnings and alerts. Because this was marked as a critical ticket, these folks got an alert saying that these requests need to be completed by end of day. And this is something that you can build in Wrike. If you are an account admin, then you can build automation rules that span across multiple spaces. But if you're a space admin, you can build automation rules that apply just to your space. So we are going to look at how to build an automation rule together today. And this is one way of ensuring our SLA compliance. You're just sending alerts and triggers to people to let them know that they need to stay on top of work and they need to execute on this by end of day today. So if you have your Wrike accounts open, please do follow along with me. If you're a space admin, and if you're using the new Wrike Lightspeed experience, you can tab into this option called Space Overview to open up your space settings. And then you're going to click on the gear icon. And once you're in the gear icon, please tab into this option called Automation. And this is where you build automation rules. So building automation rules is very straightforward, just involves about 3 or 4 steps. So you begin by creating a rule. The first step is where you say whether the rule should apply to a task, project, or custom item type. In my case, I want the rule to apply to an incident. And then you also select where the rule should apply. Should it apply to all incidents inside the space or should it apply to specific locations? In my case, I wanted to apply to only the tickets folder. So I'm going to select that. And step two is where you say when should the rule be applied or when should the rule be triggered, right? So you set up a trigger. So we said whenever a new incident is created in the tickets folder, I want this automation rule to be fired. So for my trigger, I'm going to select when a new item is created. Again, there are a ton of triggers over here. I do encourage you to explore them when you have a moment. But for our demo here, we are going to go with this one when a new item is created. And then you can add conditions on top of the trigger. We don't want to send alerts whenever a new item is created. We only want to send alerts if it is a critical incident that's created, right? So where you have custom field, I'm going to select my urgency level and I'm going to say only if it's a critical request, then trigger my rule. Then the last step, the fourth step, is where you specify what action you want to take or what alerts you want to send. Again, you have a bunch of different options here that you can perform, but we are going to go with this one where we send alerts or warnings to people. And here you can enter a message saying, please complete this by end of day today. And looks like I cannot spell. And then you can also select to notify either assignees. Because our assignees are not going to come in as being assigned, we can select specific groups. So I can select the whole help desk user group to be notified, or I can select my manager to be notified. And then they will receive an automation as soon as a new item, that is an incident, is created in the tickets folder with the urgency level set to critical. So you can go ahead and create this rule. I've already done this, so I'm not going to create this rule, but here's a rule that I had pre-created before the session. And now let's take a look at some of the other ways users have ensured compliance, right? So there is another option for you that you can explore where you have triggers. Some of the triggers that you have available is when the due date is approaching, you can send an alert. Or if you're past due, then you can alert certain people saying you're past due on this item. The ticket was supposed to be executed yesterday, but it's still in the open status. So you may want to send a trigger. So one way of ensuring compliance is through our automation engine. Now we are going to go back into our tickets folder. So let me go ahead and close this space settings page, and I am going to navigate back into my tickets folder. And within my tickets folder, you will notice that I have several different views over here. And this first view here, I've called it queue, and this is based on a custom board view. And the custom board views, for those of you familiar with the Kanban view, is where the incidents or requests are organized by statuses. And like I said, this view is very busy. It's showing all tickets that we've ever had in the ticketing queue. So in order to filter for this, you can click on this funnel icon, or what I like to call as a martini glass icon. And then you can say, I only want to see my active tasks. And you can just select your active tasks. Once you select that, you have the option to set this as the default, which is probably not what you'd want to do because then users would see your view. So what you may want to do is duplicate this custom view, create a personal view for yourself, and just call it my queue. So you have the option to duplicate pre-existing views and create your own view, or you have the option to create a net new view by clicking on the plus button and then adding the filters that you want, right? So you could also do this add plus view and create your own custom view. You can choose any of these default views that we have and create your own custom view. So that was the queue view. And now I have this other view called active incidents and requests. And this is based on what we call as a table view. And this is going to look very similar to your spreadsheet view. You can control what columns you see, and you have the option to control them via this fields icon. So you will notice that I'm only displaying active incidents and requests. Along with that, I am displaying fields such as the urgency levels and whether the request was made by an executive or not. And then you can see statuses as well. One really cool thing about this view is I've created this calculated custom field called response time. And calculated custom fields are again things that you can set up in Wrike. And the way you would do that is you'd click on the plus button if you're on the new table view, click on custom field. And once you click on custom field, you're going to select formula, and then you type out what you want this to calculate, right? So in my case, I want my response time to be the variance between my start date and the created date. So typically start date and the created date will be the same date, but there could be instances when someone punched in a request on a weekend and you didn't start working on it, right? So you may want to push that start date to Monday. You don't want that to affect your SLA. So that is something that you can do. And here you can see that someone sent in a request, and that's probably the week where the whole of IT team was out and they couldn't work on it. So they moved the start date, and then the response time here is 8 days. And there is another calculated field that I've created for completed requests. And let's look at that. So we talked about response time, which could be another SLA that you monitor. And for completed requests, we have this other SLA called resolution time, which is again a calculated field. And here we compute the difference between the completed date and the start date. So now that we've talked about intake, we've talked about execution, the final part that I alluded to was analytics and reporting. So analytics and reporting is extremely vital for service desk teams. So service desk teams can monitor performances, look at trends, and just streamline the whole process by looking at some of the metrics that you can build with our analyze reporting. So if you're on the Pinnacle package, Analyze is something that you have access to, and you can build very solid reports. And I'm going to go into one of the reports that I'd help one of my clients stand up. So this report that you're seeing here is a report that is based on the data that we've just talked about. So you will see that I have charts here which provide a summary of the state of IT requests and incidents in the month of July and June. You can see how you're doing month over month, how many requests you're getting month over month, and how these requests are pivoted based on their urgency levels. So you can see all of that good stuff. And then if you want to look at how many of your requests breached SLAs, how many of them met SLAs, then you can create additional charts. So you can see that I have 16 critical incidents, or rather I've had 16 critical incidents in the tickets folder. And I can see that one breached SLA while 15 requests met their SLAs. If I want to drill down into that data and see which are those tasks that met the SLA and which was that one task which breached SLA, then I can do a chart which provides me that information. So I can see that I have all these 16 tasks over here. And this task that breached SLA, it breached SLA by 8 days, because you can see that the start date was 13th of June, but the completion date here is the 21st. And if you want to review more details, then you have this option. You can click on a link, and this link is going to open up the task in a new tab. So we don't have the time today to get into how I configure this. There is a chance that we may run another session where we deep dive into how you configure these items. So part one of the session focused on intake and execution, and part two will focus on reporting. I did want to give you a flavor of reporting, and I wanted to show you all how everything comes together from intake to execution to reporting. And I do hope that your teams are able to harness these right capabilities to deliver exceptional customer experiences as well as surpass your license agreements. So that pretty much wraps up our demo. I'm going to open up the floor to questions. And let's see, it looks like we have one question over here. Alex, do you mind reading that out to me and I can answer that?
Megan, I just wanted to say a big thank you for running through that session. Really appreciate it. We have got a couple of questions that have come through, and one here from an anonymous attendee around the ability to add, I guess, a customer-facing or a customer-facing screen of sorts around service requests. I'm happy to answer that one question if you like, Megan, and give that person a heads up that right now our team is working on functionality that will enable a view for your customers, or a public-facing view for their requests, and as well as obviously the ability to respond to their requests through email. As far as having a knowledge-based system, I want to expand on that a little bit more and try to elaborate on that a little bit further maybe, and we'll take your feedback back to our team. And if you're prepared to leave your feedback in Wrike as well, actually in the top left corner on your profile picture, there's an option there to leave feedback. We'd want to explore that a little bit further by what you mean around the knowledge-based system and what you kind of wanted to see out of that. But thank you for that question to that person attending. Another question that I've got here, Megan, I guess, is the person has asked for, is there a way to be able to track requests based on how long they've already been open for? So it seems like there's a calculation that they're after around how long the ticket has been opened. Is that something you can demonstrate for us?
Absolutely. So there are two ways to do it, and that's such a fantastic question. So we have two options. If you're not on the Pinnacle package, or if you're on it, even then you can explore this option. So I'm just going to go back into my demo account here. So when you go into the tickets folder in the board view, you have this field that you can enable, which shows how many days it was in the last status. So this indicator right here basically tells me how many days it was in a particular status. So you'll just have to hover over it to read that information. But if you want everything to be displayed in one page, then our Analyze report is your best bet. So with our Analyze reports, you can show time spent in every status that the task has been on. So you can say that 10 days was spent in unassigned status, 2 days was spent in progress status, and then you can also track your SLAs based off of that. Fantastic question.
Thank you so very much to that person as well. And another one around, is there a ability to kind of filter down on board views?
Absolutely. You can filter down on board views, you can hide certain columns. So when we talk about filtering, there are multiple ways to do it. If there are columns that you don't want to see, you can hide certain columns, and you can collapse columns, right? And you also have the option of clicking on the martini glass. So on any view, you will see this filter icon, and this filter icon essentially means you can narrow down the scope of items that you're seeing on that view. So you can click on it, go into more filters, and apply all the filters that you want. You can say, I only want to look at critical requests on my board view, for example, and you can just filter it down to critical. What other questions do we have?
Super powerful using those filters there. Thank you for covering that with us, Meghana. I'm wary of hitting time here, so I will, for those that are questions that are unanswered, we will be sure to get back to people. Of course, I'll leave you to kind of wrap things up here, I guess. Thank you once again, Meghana. I'll hand it back to you.
Awesome. All right. Let me go back to my deck here. So, the last topic that I want to touch upon is the resources that you have to support you in your learning journey with Wrike. We do have a ton of resources. Please do leverage them. And I have seen a lot of clients ensure their continued success with Wrike by leveraging these resources. We have account managers who are going to be your primary points of contact for anything related to contracts, right? So if you have questions or need suggestions on add-ons, if you want to expand into new teams, or if you have questions around licensing, you'd get in touch with them. Then our customer success team ensures maximizing the business value of your Wrike solution. We also have our technical support team. Our technical support team are experts, and if you have any bugs that you want to report on, or if you're just facing technical challenges, you could write to them. Uh, you can also explore this community forum where we share tips and tricks, and users who've been using Wrike share insights, and you can also stay up to date on our latest releases there. Then our help page is our wonderful knowledge hub, has a ton of detailed articles and resources. And even after 4 years of being at Wrike, that's the one resource that I leverage heavily on a daily basis. And then there's, of course, Wrike Discover. You probably use Wrike Discover to get to our session today, so I'm sure you're familiar with it. But I do encourage you to explore the full potential of the platform. There's a ton of training videos that we posted there, and there'll be a lot more coming down the road. Uh, Please do keep an eye out on Wrike Discover. Then, last but not the least, we have a professional services team. If you've attended this session today, but don't feel confident or don't have the time to make the changes that we discussed, you can get someone on the professional services team to help you build these things out. Get someone like me. And with our expert knowledge and experience, we provide guidance and support to help you build your workflows. And we also have a ton of experience. We work with clients across several businesses and across several industries. So we can provide insights on how you can streamline your workflow. And our goal as professional services consultants is to ensure that you're more or less self sufficient in using Wrike and you are set up for success. So we go through everything from discovery to helping you build your account, and then we offer training, and we also help with onboarding, and we help you set up knowledge base articles as well. So that pretty much wraps our session. If you have questions around how you can get professional services team to help support you, please do write to your account manager. And if you're not sure who that is, reach out to our support team to help scope out what professional services work could look like. Uh, and at the end of the session, once I close this out, you're going to get a survey that is an anonymous survey. Please do take a couple of minutes to respond to that survey. We'd love to hear your feedback and your suggestions. Thank you so much for your time. You all have been wonderful asking questions and paying attention. So I really, really appreciate you all taking the time. Once again, have a wonderful, wonderful Wednesday. Thank you.